Thank you for joining me again, friends. Today, we have an exciting recipe, one that comes from my ne'er-do-well youth. These are going to be Chinese pork buns, and this is a recipe I developed when I moved out to Oregon from New York City. And as a teen, one of our favorite things to do was go hang out and get these things in Chinatown. But the thing is these weren't really available in normal restaurants. You had to go to get the really good ones. You could go to a fancy dim sum place and pray that they were serving that day. Or you could go to a sleazy coffee shop, and these places were scary. We would go there, and very often there would be hypodermic needles on the ground. I mean, these were like just kind of a little bit dicey places where people seem to just hang out there all day and have coffee and smoke endless cigarettes. And that's where I developed a taste for these. And when I left New York 30 years ago, I was really missing these. So I came up with this recipe. It takes a little bit of time, but it's not too rough. The ingredients are a little bit loose because, again, I just came up with this out of my head. So I hope you like it. Okay, so first we're going to have to marinate our pork. And the first thing that we will use is 2 tablespoons of honey. I like to warm it up in the microwave so it's not dealing with a gloppy mess. 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. For this, you're going to want Chinese soy sauce. You might have to go to an Asian store for this. I find that grocery stores tend to always carry Japanese soy sauce like Kikkoman, that kind of thing. It's a much sharper flavor on the Japanese stuff, I feel like. So you might want to try and get some Chinese soy sauce. It's not killer if you don't get it. It's okay. Don't go crazy. An off-the-board item, a couple of tablespoons of Lee & Perrins Worcestershire sauce, and I don't know, a tablespoon of garlic. Again, this is all really loose. We're not going to get too crazy with keeping all our measurements accurate. Next, we're going to cut our meat into strips. And again, we are keeping this kind of loose. So I don't know, just go about, 3/4 of an inch thick. And I've got about a pound of pork tenderloin here. And slice it into strips, because we're going to marinate this, and we want the marinade to get in there a fair amount, because this is the real tasty treat here. The thing of it is I can tell you, cooking this stuff in the oven, it's going to be a little bit of a chore. So a pound is about what you need for the ingredients I set out here. But if you got a whole pork tenderloin that's like, 2 or 3 pounds, you might want to make it all, because this pork, once you cook it, is really tasty. You can throw it in 20 zillion different things, and it's nice to get it sort of all done at once. But I'm just doing a pound now because that's about what we're going to need for our pork buns. If I was doing this for myself, I'd probably make a lot more than this, just because it keeps so well. And then we're going to throw it in our marinade. Wow, grinding professional sounds. And just throw it in here. And we are going to marinate it for a couple of hours in the refrigerator. It's really not that big a deal, but you do have to marinate it some. So there we go, into the refrigerator, and I'll be back in 2 hours for more of this excitement. Okay, so our pork has been marinating for about 2 hours. I've got them strung up on skewers here. I've also made up a basting sauce that we're going to be using, where I took a 1/4 cup of regular soy sauce, maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons of sweet soy sauce. This is a type of sweet soy sauce called ketchup mayonnaise, is the sort of generic name. This is Bango brand. Kind of exciting. I liked it because it had like a little pelican on it. And then the balance to bring it up to about 2/3 of a cup of water. It's really not that critical. And what we're going to be doing is putting this in a 425-degree oven for 5 minutes, basting, another 5 minutes, basting, another 5 minutes, basting, and turning down to 350 for the final 5 minutes on this. So for a total of 20 minutes altogether. When we do the basting, we're going to be opening up the hounds of hell, the oven at 425, and the setup on this as well is a little bit tricky, so stay tuned for that. So we're loading up the oven, and this is the tricky part. See how I'm getting the pork slices in between each little stringer on the rack. I'm going to put a little water in the pan here, because if you don't, things get burnt on it. And now sliding these back in, well, let's redoing things a zillion times. Let's baste a little bit, just for the heck of it. And there we go. You can see how this can turn into quite a messy routine quite quickly. You have to have synchronized oven rack sliding. And now we're going to wait for 5 minutes. And we're basting again. This is our second time. Oh, it's quite a deal trying to get these racks sliding at the same time so you're not slopping stuff all over your oven. So we have our pork done, and you can see it's just got an amazing color to it. Your whole house smells fantastic when you make this. I actually had to go an extra 5 minutes in the end at 350, but this is basically about what you want. Some might even go a little bit longer too and get a little bit darker. I like it about like this. So we're going to wait for it to cool down, dice it, and then start stir frying it to make the filling. So we've got our pork all chopped up, between a 1/2 inch and 3/8 of an inch dice. 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 or 3 tablespoons of oyster sauce. I'm kind of an oyster sauce fanatic, so I go with 3. A tablespoon of sugar, our scallion sliced really thin, tablespoon or so of garlic, and in here I have a tablespoon of cornstarch mixed with some warm water. You have to have all this stuff pretty much set out beforehand because we're going to stir fry this and it's going to go really quickly. So let's get on to that. Okay, so we've got our wok nice and smoky hot. I'm going to throw in a couple of teaspoons of peanut oil. Kind of like that, it gives it a more nutty taste. It's more interesting than just regular vegetable oil. And we're going to do our scallions. So you can see how quickly that goes. I didn't even really have time to talk during that, so I just put up the video instructions. So I hope that wasn't too bad, but that's all of like, I don't know, 2 minutes cooking time. The last secret ingredient, ketchup. Yeah, I know a lot of people are going to get on my case about that because it's not exactly authentic. But as far as I'm concerned, if it tastes good, I'm putting it in there, and I like ketchup in it. And you can see this gets this like amazing color to it that's just, this stuff is the best. You could almost just take it like right like this and slop it on some rice and have a great dinner. But we're going to let this cool down and move on to our buns. Okay, so now we are going to make the dough for the pork buns. And you can make this dough by scratch, but believe me, if you're trying to do this all in one go and make the pork, do the barbecued pork filling, then make the buns. I like using these little mixes. You can get them at most Asian markets. You will want to look for the little picture on there that looks like what we're going to wind up with, pork buns. It's basically flour, and lately they started combining these things with yeast. They used to just be, I think, baking soda based, and that was the leavening in them. The thing about these is the instructions are always very interesting in terms of how they work. So we've got combined the flour here with 250 milliliters of fresh milk, 130 grams of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cooking oil. Stuff for 10 minutes Then stuff for 5 more minutes by hand to make the dough smoother. What does that mean? Well, I take that to mean knead the dough. And since they didn't say, then they go on to say 5 minutes by hand, I'm thinking that they mean 5 minutes in 10 minutes in a mixer followed by 5 minutes by hand, which is a pretty normal thing in any sort of dough recipe. So that's what we are going to do. All right, so we have finished our stuffing for 10 minutes, and now we're doing our stuffing by hand for 5 minutes more. Using our best Julia Child heel of the hand and rotating it motion to get it all mixed up. All right, so we finished our 5 minutes of hand stuffing, and I'm going to turn it inside out on itself a few times. A little bit of flour just to make sure it doesn't stick. Dust it on top a little bit. We've got our nice stretched balloon look on the top of the dough. And now we are going to cover it with a cloth and set it aside in a warm place, wherever that may be in your house, for an hour, according to the instructions in our nebulous packaging. Okay, so our dough has been rising. I just put it in a warm oven and it took about an hour and a half. It's about double in size. So now we are ready to roll it out. And I'm rolling with my spacer roller because I find that I want a really even dough thickness for these. Because if not, when you go to make the buns, they tend to have thin bottoms if you're using a tapered French rolling pin, because it makes it a little bit thinner in there and if you're not really careful. So I am using the orange thickness spacer on these, which corresponds to 1/6 of an inch, or I don't know, something in millimeters. These things never have really the most convenient measurements. But what you're trying to do is get a thickness that's going to allow you something like 12 buns out of the whole thing. So we're going to try and get 12 circles, I don't know, around 3 inches in diameter out of this whole thing. I'm just going to go along here with one of these little ramekins because it's about the right diameter. And the thing of it is this dough has a fair amount of gluten and all that kind of thing, so it's going to stretch and, you know, it's going to stretch and compact on you quite a bit. So it's not the easiest thing to work with, not the hardest. But I'm going to see how many I can get out of this. I'm not sure I'm really even going to get 12, but I'll try and get as close as I can. And since this is not pie dough, I'm okay with rolling this out again. You know, I mean, it's not the end of the world. Another thing that's really great here is having one of these scrapers. These are invaluable for getting things up off the sheet after you roll them. And I'm just going to put them over here on a plate for the time being. I might even roll these out a little bit more. These seem a little bit thick here. Okay, so now we have our 12 dough circles, and we have to finally stuff them with the filling. I've had my filling out for a little bit, so it's at room temperature. And you put in a little bit of the pork filling there, maybe a little bit more than that. This is very easy to go too heavy on with the filling. But what we're going to do now is a little bit of water, go around the edges, helps seals it a little bit. And then we are going to gather and just go around, stuffing with our thumb and sort of picking it up and then twisting at the top. That's our final look there. Then little square wax paper, boom, into the bamboo steamer. Even though they're small now, give them a little bit of separation, because when these get cooking, they will expand. And when they start cooking, when they start sticking to each other, it gets to be, they'll stick all together and be kind of a messiness. And we don't really want that. So notice I'm being pretty careful here with about how much I put in. I suppose you could use a dedicated little scoop and do it, but here we go. Getting that first pinch and going around, stuffing with this thumb as I go around and gather it. Ideally, not getting any on the outside and then doing that little twist. I usually go with about 4 in each steamer shelf. Oh my God, these two stuck together. Okay, there we go. Let's do it again. Give it a little bit of a stretch out maybe here. And I don't know, I'm using a teaspoon here, but I would say I'm putting in maybe, I don't know, about a tablespoon full. But unless you get this twist right, it'll still taste fantastic, but it's not gonna look that good. So again, picking up here, bringing this up, bringing that fold over, stuffing with my thumb, going around, and I am stretching the dough. This is like what I said when I was rolling it out, this is a very stretchy dough, so you got a lot of room. This is not like pie crust. You have plenty of stretch here. It's silly with it. There we go. All right, I don't know. I got 8 or 9 of these more to go, and I will see you back. This is what we want here. We've steamed our buns. You might want to wait a little bit to take the paper off, because if you take it off too soon, it just rips all the dough out of the bottom of them. And then you're going to want some soy sauce. And you're going to want the soy sauce in this kind of bottle, so you get that cheesy coffee shop vibe to it. Unless you want the highfalutin dim sum restaurant vibe. That's cool too. I just sort of like it this way. A little bit of soy sauce on them. Let's just cut this one in the middle here. And you can see we have all that great pork filling in there. And that is the greatest thing in the world. I can eat easily 10 of these things before I get tired of them. And they're just amazing. You won't be sorry. Once again, please like and subscribe to Rupert Cooks. It's the name of this channel. And most of all, enjoy your dim sum of the damned.